Hi viewers, we have with us KS Dakshina Murthy, who's the managing editor of The Federal, and he specializes in international affairs. We'll be having a discussion with him on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit of the US and its significance. Dakshin, unlike previous visits, does this US trip of Modi indicate a significant growth in the Indo-US relations?
Um, well, what it basically signifies, this visit is the sixth visit. The visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the US is the sixth visit. And, it's called a state visit and all that, but, it's basically a technicality. When you say state visit, it's more of a ceremonial. There is a lot of ceremonial, events that surround the visit. But we are really not looking at that because that is really more the hype and the symbolic importance that is given to the visit. In reality, what Mr. Modi's visit signifies is a continuation of a close U.S. India ties, and it's basically a progression. It's not a sudden jump into something very different from what we have seen in the past. Neither is it unimportant. So it's a continuity basically from the previous visits.
Right.
Yeah.
So India has always maintained a balanced relationship with Russia and the US. So in that context, how crucial is this visit of Modi?
Yeah. So basically, in fact, what is important about this visit is the context in which this visit is happening. The Ukraine conflict, for instance, is a major issue. It's been going on since February of last year, and there seems to be no sign of ending. And the US and the West, especially the NATO countries, they would want India to be with them totally, but India is not, because India also has its own personal equation with Russia. And it's also a very crucial and very important, in fact almost as important as India's ties with the US. So India can't afford to dilute that. So what India has been doing is it's kind of managing both. Now the question may arise, if India is managing both and it is not obliging the West, why is the US tolerating India in that case? That is because there is a massive give and take that's happening, which is the result of China. So China has become a big player now. Almost, it's a new superpower. In fact, that's how it's being characterized. In by many analysts and commentators and people who have worked on this issue. So the
Right.
point here is that for the US, India is important as a countervailing factor for China. And the best way to the US feels that India is the best way to deal with China, because we are neighbors, and there is so they are looking the other way. Even as India continues to have a relationship with Russia, buying their oil, etc., the US is looking the other way. They're not taking punitive measures. And in many ways, this buying of oil from Russia is also helping Europe, because India is processing the oil, the crude from Russia, and then reselling it to Europe. So yeah, all these things put together, the US has continued to relate to India as if nothing has happened on the Ukraine front. So, so that is why so the balancing that India is doing between Russia and the US is working for now. So we don't know where it's going to go later, but as of
Right.
now, it's fine. Yeah.
So China gave a glowing report of Antony Blinken's visit, and Xi Jinping hinted at progress being made. So, if Modi is to raise the LAC issue with China during his talks with Biden, how do you think US would react now?
The US is already seized of this issue. In the sense, the LAC issue and the Chinese aggression on India's border is something that the US already knows. It's not really required for Modi to raise it with the US to for the US to respond to this. But the fact of the matter is that the US response can only be limited. It cannot even threaten China. It can at the most criticize China for putting pressure on India on the border and trying to, move forward in those border areas which are really not well marked. Okay, so but at the same time, So, this is one area, okay, where the US cannot do anything much. Whether Modi goes to the US or, whether somebody comes to India, because the US itself has its own relationship with China, and the US cannot afford to antagonize China beyond a point. And the Chinese also know that the Chinese and the US have a different equation altogether. We cannot equate India's relationship with the US and Chinese relationship with the US. China and the US are more on an equitable footing. China is probably the only country in the world today which can take on the US. That cannot be said of India. India is still, way behind. So it's really not going to make much of a difference.
Right. So Prime Minister Modi met Elon Musk today, and after the meeting, Elon Musk said, and I quote him, he really cares about India because he's pushing us to make significant investments in India, which is something we intend to do. And then he also said, I'm confident that Tesla will be in India and will do so as soon as humanly possible. So now, why is Modi pushing for Tesla in India? Considering he's been really vocal and he's made a strong pitch for Atmanirbhar Bharat.
See, Atmanirbhar Bharat is political rhetoric, but the reality is different. Okay, so India, for instance, Tesla and the kind of technology associated with it, India does not have that kind of a technology. So it has to have a tie-up with Tesla if it ever wants to expand its EV, spectrum within India. And also, if you look at this particular visit, you have the General Electric, tying up with the US government to manufacture jet engines in India. So India is used more like a back office, or an outsourcing destination. So it's basically India is offering itself as a place where international players can come and manufacture, say engines or etc. But it still has a long way to go, because China is was until now the preferred destination, by all Western countries, by all private industries, as the back end office or back end factory or a workshop which would manufacture their goods. India hasn't reached that point, but this issue about the GE tying up with the US to manufacture engines in India, there is a talk, that there is going to be technology transfer, which will be given to HAL and to the DRDO, which will make these engines. So what India's hopes is that the technology transfer happens, it will help India. But these are really gray areas, because nobody is really sure whether the technology transfer can happen. Because if you look at all US-India tie-ups, especially in terms of trade and manufacturing, when the US signs a deal with India, the technology transfer doesn't happen. Unlike India's tie-ups with the Soviet Union earlier and with Russia now. So the US is very cagey about transferring technology to India. Whether it's going to happen this time or not, though there is a lot of speculation that they're going to do it, we just have to wait and see. If that happens to some extent, there is some kind of a significant progress that one can say has been achieved. Otherwise, it will be just a back-end operation for GE in India. That's it.
Right. So thank you so much for your time, Dakshin, and shedding light on Prime Minister's visit of the US.
Yeah, thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.